Like one of the guys said that has stayed with us in the past, if you're your true, authentic self, it doesn't matter what you are, whether you're angry, whether you're upset, sad, whatever it happens to be, as long as you're your true, authentic self with the Mustang,
Oh, yeah.
they'll respond to you.
As far as they're concerned from the herd perspective, they don't want you in the herd. If you're not sure about how you are, it's confusing for them.
There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit, so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the Wild Mustang. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Why don't you guys start off with a little introduction of kind of what you do in the realm of horses?
Sure. So I'm Kathleen. I've been a horse person since I was a little kid. Since I first knew what a horse was, I fell in love with them and never really thought that we'd be doing what we're doing today, but it's come around full circle for me. And what we do now at Samson Strength Sustainable Veterans Project is we do equine empowered therapy and equine empowered training. So it's EET, which is based out of a program in California. And they graciously, and I'm going to let David explain a little bit more because he's gone more in depth with them, but they graciously provided us training in their program and are excited that we're doing it here in Alabama. So it's all groundwork, what we do with the horses. Like we had an open house this past weekend and we have Mustangs, we have Belgian draft horses and donkeys, and we brought Mustangs in and we introduced people that came to visit our open house to the Mustangs, to equine empowered therapy, to the Masterson method, and kind of gave an explanation of why we do that and why we don't ride, why we just do groundwork with our horses. We firmly believe, I didn't mention this, but I'm a mental health professional, so I've been in community mental health since 91. It's a long time.
A long time. Yeah, you've seen a lot.
And all the time, I've always worked in trauma. So I've worked first with child trauma, child abuse and neglect, with adult sexual trauma, domestic violence. And then I worked solely with the military, law enforcement, first responders, veterans. And I also work in substance use disorder programs. And so we firmly believe that horses have the ability to heal humans. I know I do. I know that me as a therapist, I can be doing this for a long time and have a lot of skills and work with a client for 6 months to a year. But if I bring a horse into this whole situation, into the dynamic, that year-long work goes into one session. It's amazing.
Really?
Yeah, because
that's a big gap.
A big gap. And I don't have a problem admitting that. And I think I'm pretty good some days at the whole therapy thing, right?
Yeah.
The horses facilitate in a non-threatening manner, and we could talk more about that.
Yeah, and let's absolutely dig in at some point.
Yes. And it just provides me an opening to be able to, the person becomes more vulnerable, and it's easier for me to be able to help them facilitate that change and that awareness about themselves. So we talk a lot about awareness in what we do. So that's what we do. We work with the horses. We work with veterans, military, first responders, law enforcement. Another thing for me that's really near and dear to my heart are providers like myself, right? Because very often it's overlooked all that we've experienced and the struggles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about me. I've talked a bit, but let Dave go and share himself.
Yeah, let's hear from Dave.
I'm Dave, co-founder of Samson Strength with Kathleen, and I started out in the military after going to high school, 2 years in college. I was pre-med. Reagan cut the budget. I ended up going into the Navy. I couldn't get a student loan back then in the early 80s. So I spent the next almost 32 years in the military. 10 years active Navy. I recommissioned the USS Missouri, decommissioned the USS Fulton, worked at the subbase in Groton, had 3 years in the reserves out of Groton, and then joined the Connecticut Army National Guard and was in there for 19 plus years. Didn't quite make 20. I was medically retired in 2014. December 7th was my first day as a civilian in 2014, day in infamy. Got out of the military and things weren't real pretty for me at that point. Wasn't sure what to do. Like Kathy said in the past, my identity was really attached to the military. and I hadn't planned on getting out for another 10 years.
Yeah.
So, I was sort of stuck.
Yeah, and it sounds like a really quick, sudden change.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
The change started when I came back from deployment in 2013, continued, and then I had a suicide attempt in 2014 after 3 major surgeries, and I was on Wellbutrin for a while, which didn't work for me.
Yeah.
So, I got lucky. Kathy came home early that day. That being said, in 2015, I had gone through about 500 different properties online, narrowed it down to 37 that we physically went to look at. That's how we ended up down here with the property down here. Because I looked at Florida, North and South Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama. We were looking for a farm.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted a veteran village, and she liked the idea.
Yeah, I mean, no horse girl's going to turn down the idea of a farm. Place to have horses there.
Yeah, well, with that being said, I grew up in Center City, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I lived a block from the reservoir, and across the reservoir was Captain Kangaroo's studio. Those of you who are old enough to remember that.
Captain Kangaroo. You have to Google it now.
Yeah.
But, I never saw a horse, and probably I didn't see one in Scouts. I probably didn't see a horse up close until probably 2010 when Kathy took me for a ride. We rented some horses in Pennsylvania when we were down there visiting and went for a ride for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first ride. And
wow.
I tell people I've had 3 major rides in my life. A major ride is anything over 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I started playing with the horses 2013. I went through the Equus Effect, which is doing very similar to what we're going to be doing here. They do all groundwork, and it was neat because I learned about horses, and putting my hands on a horse, learning to calm down, made a big difference. So here we move forward. We moved down here in 2015 to Alabama from Connecticut. I was happy to leave. And then we moved down here in 2015, and we started with a farm. We had chickens. We were growing garlic and some other stuff, different vegetables. We were actually selling vegetables at the farmer's market. 17, we had a veteran that came to live with us. He was here for a year and a half while we were building the first house. He stayed in our RV. He's moved on. He's gotten a house. He lives in Georgia now with his daughter. He's handicapped, so that works out well. But 2018 was when we built the first house here on the farm. It's right next to our pond, and it was built specifically for Jim, but he had chosen to leave just before we finished it. And that was okay. It was what it was. We've used it since then. We've had 14 different veterans, actually now 17 different veterans that have stayed here on the farm at different times. Some of them for a couple of days, some of them for 13 to 15 months.
So it was needed regardless.
Yeah, and that's it. It was needed regardless. We built the first one there. The next one we built was in 2019.
So that year, my dad had passed away, and my dad was a World War II veteran. You might have seen some of that information on our Facebook page. And so I came home from his service, and I was driving home, and it was about a mile away from our house. On the right-hand side, there was a piece of property, and it said, for sale, and it was 16 acres, and it was all fenced in pasture and trees and all of that. And I just pulled over there and I started crying. I'm going to start crying now, but I felt like Daddy was saying, this is where you need to build these houses, right? Mm-hmm. Because we built the houses and had planned to put the houses on our physical property, on our land, right behind our house, right? Mm-hmm. Although we knew that could be some issues, we were really okay with it, but I think it was just him kind of saying, no, you need to have it separate, right? You need to have your space as well as their space.
Right.
And so I went home and I drove home and Dave was there and I said, hey, did you see that land for sale? And he goes, yeah. And I said, I think Daddy says we should buy it. And what happened was the exact amount that money was my portion of my inheritance.
What a beautiful legacy.
Within like $1,000.
Yeah, within $1,000.
Wow.
And so I said, no, that's for sure him telling us that. So that's what we did. And so the first house, when it's finished, we'll have a shadow box with my dad's military Navy uniform. He was in World War II. And it'll have a little story like that about what happened so that people will understand where that first one originated.
So we started that first house 2019. We had a Home Depot day. They came out and did a Home Depot day. We built a lot of the house. My general contractor Meadows. He's done wonders for us. He's built all of the foundations. The first house we built over at the farm, he ran that completely. That second house that we built, the first one at the site, he built that one completely. And then I basically picked it up because I was doing the finish work. And so I started doing that. The second house was basically built by myself and a volunteer from Talladega.
And I helped a little bit.
Oh, well, I mean, we were the ones.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give her a little credit.
She helped to stand the wall up.
I helped stand the
after we
wall
built it
up.
up.
And I
Yeah.
ordered that stuff, which I don't know what it's called. The glue, the liquid nails.
Oh, the liquid nails. I said liquid nails.
Yeah.
Putting the liquid nails down. And then the third house was another Home Depot project in March of 2020. It was March 8th and 9th. And I remember the dates because March 8th and 9th was the last weekend we had before COVID on March 12th. Volunteerism at that point went. What I forgot to mention was the first house that we built on the farm, Auburn University's McWhorter School of Building Science. The students we had proposed to the school, and they came out and helped us build it.
Oh, wow. What a great idea.
Yes. Well, they're students that are going to be project managers. So a lot of them haven't had any time on the site. So they get something, they learn something before they go out and start making timelines.
Some experience for them and some manpower for you guys. It's perfect.
Correct. So fourth house was another house by Auburn University, but now they were building their wall sections down in Opelika. Is it Opelika? Yeah, Opelika. Down at the school. They had a brand new science lab built where they could lift the wall sections up after they built them and put them down. So they carried them. They built all the wall sections. When they were ready, they built them up. They brought them up. We had applied for another group to come out, different year. We had 3 groups come out. So that's the fourth house that we built on the site. The fifth house that we built on the site, they came out and built as well. And I don't remember the exact timeline at this point.
But I want to say, in between all of this, while this is all going on, we didn't have any horses, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had donkeys that we'd rescued, and we thought we put our chicken coop in where the donkeys were. We were going to use them as protectors, right? And guardians for coyotes and things. But we didn't have any horses. And the whole time I was trying to get Dave, because even though he was doing all these things, he was still really struggling with coming home.
Yeah.
Military. And I knew horses could help, and I knew they'd helped him in the past, right? So I saw the Mustang Heritage Foundation and how they had that program specifically for veterans, right? It was like a 6-week program, and that
It was a 6-week tip training program.
Right. And they'd go to Texas and they'd be part of a tip training program and have a horse. They'd leave with a horse, a Mustang. And so I'd signed him up. And first time I didn't tell him I signed him up. I signed him up. But then when I found out he had to tell a story, I had to tell him. Like, he had to tell him why he wanted to go, right? So he reluctantly did that. And we didn't make it in time for that class. That class closed, whatever. So then COVID happened. Then we applied again. And then they had said that they had shut it down because of COVID. And then they realigned some of what they were doing at the Mustang Heritage Foundation and weren't doing that anymore. So then we found out kind of a roundabout sort of way about a program, which I think you know about, Dale and Renee at our ranch. And so again, I reached out and I kind of signed him up, to go to this. So this is all going on.
But Dale was in that 2018 class that we'd applied for.
So they were wonderful and accepted Dave in. And this was all going on around this same time. And then, so that was before we went there.
Yeah, we got our first Mustangs October 23rd of 2021. I remember because we got horses that day. We were also doing a American Legion Riders Music Festival that day. So when I finished up with that, I ran back to the house to the horses. We went to start seeing the horses
in August. So Babby was our tip trainer. We hadn't gotten into Dale and Renee's place yet. And so I was looking for, there's got to be a way. We'll just get a Mustang on our own, right? We'll figure this out. So that's what I thought about the tip program, right? And in Leeds, which is right outside Birmingham, Abby was a tip trainer. And so I reached out to her, and she said what we were interested in doing, that we wanted to get one Mustang.
It's hard to do.
Like potato chips, which people don't talk about. So Dave went and he met this horse who was a long yearling. Dave met him and really connected with him, but we were still only going to get one.
Yeah, we were laughing because I walked into the stall with him and I picked up a brush and was brushing him because I brushed the donkeys,
Mm-hmm.
And Kathy and the tip trainer, Babby, are standing over on the side saying, she says, nobody's done that yet.
Really? You just walked in, you're like, hey, we got this.
Well, because he knew nothing about horses except what domestic that were push button horses. And so he saw people grab a brush and brush them. And his mind, he saw the brush sitting there and we're talking, me and the trainer, and we look over and there he is. And both of us were like, should we say something? But it just went well and they connected.
Went all right.
Yep. And so they were about an hour and a half away, but we would drive there every weekend so that he could see the horse and connect with the horse while she was doing the tip training, right? And while we were getting our space ready. Yeah, I know, I'm going to tell. So, of course, I go, and there's a lot of other horses, right? And there was this one horse, and she was a sorrel mare, and she was like all by herself. And so me, the mental health professional, I'm thinking, oh, this is so sad. So I got a chair and I spent time with her, and she was connected or disconnected from other horses and from humans. And
she's also a Mustang?
She's also
at the same place?
All they have are Mustangs.
Okay.
So she basically, what they said was like, you're going to take her too, because it was the week before we're trying to get ready, and we're like, okay, what else do we need?
Because after we decided to take the horse, I had to build a barn. We had a round pen, but I didn't have a barn.
Yeah.
So I was building 3 stalls, and I put 2 pieces of plywood on the roof finally when I got to that point, and said, okay, we got a barn. Because all you have to have in Alabama is either trees or a roof.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a roof.
Yeah.
I was working on it, obviously, but I had a roof.
Right.
And so we ended up taking her home, and we named Samson after Samson's strength, right? And then I named her Until Grace. So there's a song called Until Grace, and it goes, Until Grace Found Me. Because I had pretty much decided, even though I grew up with horses and I loved horses, that I didn't want to get a horse that I bonded with because I didn't want to lose it. I didn't want something to happen to it, which is what happened to my horse that I had when I was a kid. And so I was really resistant, but then Grace came. And then Dave, about a year later, a little less than a year, he went off to Dale and Renee's. And
July of 2022 is when it started.
I was alone with the 2 Mustangs.
We'd gone to take a look at a couple of different Mustangs in 2 different places. In the first place, they had said they were going to give us certain horses, and they reneged on it. So we went to Pennsylvania, Stacy Gardner, and picked them up from Gentle Heart Stables. And I picked up Mustang Blaze and Super Moose.
These are more Mustangs now.
There's more Mustangs.
Just one.
These are the 2.
Yeah. They're just one that multiplied.
When I went up to Dale and Renee's, I took another veteran from Alabama with me, and that's why I got the 2 horses. I was planning to bring 2 back anyway, but it could have been one for him, one for me.
Yeah.
However, while he was up there, he looked at 2, and he's got 2 still up there that are being put through the process of being able to ride. And he's actually just started to build. He's got 100 acres down here. He's just started to build down here. So we can get them down here. But I get Blaze and Super Moose. So Blaze, if you ever looked at his head, he's got looks like a horse's head on his for his Blaze, and he's pure black. He was the herd stallion for Double Devil's Garden. Okay. Super Moose was one of his band stallions. So, I was working with Blaze as my program horse, because he's 15 too. He's a big boy. And at that point, I was like 2 feet, so I needed a little bit bigger horse. So I was working with him, and after 2 weeks, I wasn't getting very far. So I started working with Moose in the evenings just for the fun of it, because Randy was working with a couple other, with Miss Ellie, which was Dale's sister, who passed away. That was her horse, and nobody had a chance to work with her. Randy worked with her very well. But I started working with Super Moose, and Randy and I are standing in the middle of the round pen, and we let him out of his stall. Well, he came out of his stall, kicking it up. He's double barreling up over our heads. Now, Moose is 14'2". Okay? He's not very big.
Yeah.
Size.
He's powerful.
But he's like Blaze. They both have draft horse in them because they introduced draft into that herd. He's got draft in him. He's got a nice barrel on him. It's like, we're going to die.
Yeah. Yeah, that's never a good feeling to have a horse just exploding around you.
So, but within 2 weeks, the day I got touch on him, I got full touch on him. I was able to take his tag off, put a halter on, put a lead rope on, same day. And then after that, I used him as the program horse. We graduated the program 2 weeks after that. And with Moose, I was able to take him around a round pen, over a jump, across a little wooden bridge, load and unload the trailer, take him over here, brush him for a while, put a pad on him, take him across the plastic of the tarp on the ground, take him back to the barrel, and tie one of my T-shirts that I'd worn the day before over his eyes and do everything again. Okay? A lot of trust. Okay?
Yeah.
It was amazing to me just to see the difference. Moose is also the one that ran me over when we were trying to do his feet the first time.
Yeah.
He let us do the front ones because Dale does the front ones, and then he kicked at Dale, and then I was standing where I shouldn't have been, which was in front of him. After he did that, he took off, and I was in the way.
He's like, I'm done with this. I don't care if you're right there.
My learning curve for horses goes that way, straight up.
Yeah. They're fast teachers. You learn quick.
Yeah, you do. Either you learn quick or you get hurt more. And I've been run over, kicked once, bitten once, stepped on. But that was Samson.
Yeah,
he was just being goofy.
He was being goofy,
and he didn't step on me bad. He stepped on the end of my boot.
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah. I couldn't move.
Yeah, push him off. Yeah.
I went to stand up.
But when all that was happening, so then because he trained Moose, he was going to work more with Blaze, right? So he brought Moose back home, and we had been scheduled, both Dave and I, sponsored by the California program, to attend our first Masterson's method training. And so Dave came home, brought Moose home, and then was going to just, after we took the class, was just going to go back up, do a little more work with Blaze and turn around and come back, but his truck broke down.
That was Labor Day weekend. We came with the weekend after Labor Day. We did the Masterson method.
And so then what happened was when his truck broke down up there, he got stuck up there. So he was stuck for
7 weeks.
7 weeks.
I didn't get home until November 2nd.
So he, on top of the original 6 weeks, I was with the Mustangs all by myself.
With Moose.
Mm-hmm. Now with Super Moose, right? Was just
because they were adding up. Right.
Well, he was just tip trained, and I'd have no interaction with him, right? So, but he and I became best buds really fast. He's my love bug, and everybody just loves him. And the funny part about Moose is, so I grew up, when I finally did start riding after I got older, I was riding hunter jumpers, right? So even though Moose is short, I thought he's a powerful little pony, right? He could be perfect for me because I'm short, and he'd be a great hunter jumper. And so the funny story is that we put in these fences, right? Like the electric fence, the solar electric fence with the tape. Mm-hmm. And every day he was getting out, and no one else got out. And so I was convinced, I'm messing up the timeline a little bit, but I was convinced, I'm like, Dave, oh my gosh, he's going to be my hunter jumper, right? And then one day I came home and I watched him go like this. And he went under the fence.
Darn it. That's not going to work.
And we around the same time that she saw that, but he was staying here, and he had we have a swing that's about 200 yards from that fence. And he was sitting on it watching Moose. Because Moose was getting ready to go under it. He's just walking back and forth. And he wouldn't go under it while he was watching him.
Yeah. Smart.
They talk about eye pressure and what a horse feels, and it really shows this, because I drove into the driveway, got out of my car, he turned to look at me, and when he turned to look at me, the horse went under the road. I watched him go under it. He'd been there for half an hour watching it, and he wouldn't go.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But so then, and we just, after that, so then we brought Blaze home. Dave started doing more work with the Masterson's method. I did just the 2-day weekend class, but he asked the Equine Empowered Therapy program in California if they would consider continuing to sponsor him, because he really enjoyed it. And we found how it was really helpful for both Dave and the horses. And I learned a lot, but I have a lot of other things going on my plate. So we thought it would be great way for Dave to really just have a quick course in learning about horses, because you have to deep dive into anatomy. He's like taken all the horse anatomy classes. He's done a lot of work. He understands a lot more of the top to bottom physical body of a horse, all the parts, than I do. No, you do. And so he really does. And so that's kind of where we kind of got started with that. And we started working more with the people in California to understand better about what they're doing, because there's many different models, right? And I won't mention the names or anything, but for equine assisted type of therapy, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so they're very effective models, and they do great work. A lot of them, a majority of them incorporate what's called hippotherapy, right? So there's riding involved. And we really didn't want to do that here. We didn't, not that we don't have rideable horses, because we do. And we'll tell you a little bit about those potato chips that joined our family. The piece is that what we found is that there's a lot missed when you just go to riding. The relationship with the horse, right? Yeah. The connection that you get with the horse, with yourself, with others, the work that you do through the Mastersons, through the equine empowered piece, what we talk about. And I didn't mention this part. So growing up, I was a groom. That's kind of what my parents said. If you want to get a horse, you got to prove it to us that you can take care of one. So I got a job at a barn and I worked as a groom. So it was drilled into me from the beginning about the importance of touching every part of the horse's body, noticing every part of the horse's body, for them to be looking top notch for the show, but also to look for any sores or anything, right? And then I went to school to be a veterinary technician because initially I liked animals more than I liked people. Some days I still
Yeah.
I'm usually in that human population.
Some days.
Yeah.
Some days you're just an animal, but that's why we get along. But so the piece is that understanding this, for me, it was a big shift, right? To understand the difference between grooming. I didn't understand that I was really connecting and building trust with the horse. I thought I had a purpose in my grooming, right?
Yeah, focused on the job.
And so part of what we teach, we have homeschool students that come out here, like we said, veterans, military, everyone. The first thing I teach, and that's what Dave gives to me because that's my area of specialty, is how to groom the horse, right? And we incorporate in the touch and the importance of the touch. And then Dave kind of steps in and does more of the Masterson piece. But every bit of it, we're talking about being present. Every bit of it, we're talking about breathing, using our breath. Every bit of it, we're talking about the horse's heart rate, our heart rate.
Yeah. You touch the horse for 3 minutes, you're going to change your breathing, you're going to change your heart rate.
Yes.
And we talk about the human body, its electrical field goes out 6 feet, the horse's goes out 30. So when you enter their 30-foot space, they already know where you're coming from.
Right.
They know your intent. They know where you're at.
And we talk, so we've added other horses, and we'll tell you about those, but each one of our horses has a story, right? And we encourage, when we teach, we had a group out this past weekend from another barn who doesn't have Mustangs. They don't have Mustangs, they have domestic horses. And they said, well, our horses have lived a pretty simple life. And I said, it doesn't mean they don't have a story. Look at their personality. They all have a personality just like people. And by sharing their story, whether you know the whole story or not, you can imply things about it, like maybe this horse was in charge of the herd, right? They're very confident, right? We'll talk about a confident mare, right? Or a confident gelding. Why do you think they're confident? That's their personality, right? So what are some experiences they might have had? Or a mare or a gelding that's not confident, right? And so we've added other horses.
We started with Argentina, March of 2023.
We added her.
And then we got Artemis, Mother's Day weekend. She was our 8 to 10-month-old.
Directly from a storefront.
Yeah. She was wild.
Yeah.
So we gentled her at the farm. We had full touch on her in 2 days.
Yeah.
That's the Mustang everybody dreams about when you get one, right?
Well, and she was young and she was very curious, and it was me grooming. I just sat in there with brushes, and when she'd come over to me, I'd start touching her. And I use grooming gloves first, always. So that's what I teach people versus brushes. So grooming gloves that you get with the nubbies on it.
Yeah.
Because your hands are right on the horse. And
just have to teach people not to push too hard.
Right.
First time I ever used them. So
yeah.
Samson was thrilled with me with their gloves.
But that's the other part, is teaching how the different horses, just like us, have different sensory systems, right? And that, some of the horses are more sensitive to that touch. And so we want to be mindful. We want to know the horse, right?
It's true, yeah.
We want to understand. And the horse will teach us how they are if we just pay attention, right? And so as I'm saying these things to you, those are the things that we incorporate in the equine empowered piece, right? So if I'm working with providers, I'm really talking about what we learn in Masterson, which is we search for a response. We get the response, we stay there, right? And then we release, right? And so thinking about working with a client, right, or a patient, is that we search for something that could be the core of the issue, right? For depression, trauma. And then when we find it, we just stay present. We just stay present. We don't ignore it and keep going. We stop there. We get quiet about it, right? And then what we'll do is after we do that, we're going to step back a little bit and let them not feel this extreme pressure, So it's the same with the horse. And if I could teach the provider that about the horse, they have this realization like, oh my gosh, that's what I should be doing with my clients.
A really good visual and understanding. It's so beautiful the way those principles transfer. You're talking horse body work and then human mind and the similarities that you can draw from that and the way you can use those principles.
Well, the neat part about it is Jim Masterson tells you throughout the books that he writes is less is more.
Yes.
So, a lot of times I'm using an air gap, which means I can be this far from the horse. I can be 10 feet from the horse and still working the Masterson method, which is how I got the blaze. Okay. Because after a couple of days of just working with his pole and his TMJ, he walked up to my hand and put his head on my hand because he liked the energy feedback that he was getting.
It's incredible.
And it's the same thing with the people. Less is more sometimes.
Right. Because it's really about, and we can use, this is the other part that I find interesting. I said to the part that I could take a year's work of therapy and put it into one session. I've been a therapist for a long time. I know horses, like as far as domestic horses, I'm good with that. Right. And I'm also I'm pretty much our veterinary technician, like all the things that normally you'd probably call the vet on day one. Kathy puts into effect all my things until I say, I'm pretty smart about it. I don't let a horse suffer. Believe me. I'm sure you know that, but I know a lot about how to treat things, Yeah.
Skills probably every horse owner should have, to be fair, to have those kind of basic.
I don't have them.
No.
Yeah. Well, you have Kathleen.
Right. So I knew all that stuff. I knew about how to halter a horse. Sometimes like Dave, the donkeys got out and he put the halter on the horse. And I looked over and I tried not to laugh, but the bottom part was right here.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck?
Not quite right.
The other thing, and the donkey's like, what is this thing?
What are you doing?
Yeah,
that's funny. They're a little tricky to figure out if you're not familiar with them.
I still do that. I still have to look at it so I can get it on right.
Yeah.
And with the Mustangs, we usually use rope halters. So this was like a regular halter that he grabbed, and he was kind of like, what the heck is this thing? But so that stuff I know, right? I know about riding. I know about saddles. I know about all that stuff. But what was fascinating to me is, like you said, the parallels that when I saw Dave doing this Masterson work, I just took a 2-day class. When he took the other classes and I watched him do this work, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's just like therapy. Oh my gosh, that's just like therapy. This is what I would do with a person experiencing depression. This is what I do with, when we talk about how we integrate a horse into our herd, right? We don't just, when we get a new horse, we don't just throw it into the herd, right? We put it in a round pen. They've all been quarantined, so we don't necessarily have to worry about that, right? But they can do nose to nose, right? So they're sharing water. I put a thing up underneath so that they have water on each side. So they share water and they can do nose to nose, but they're not in the same space until at least 2 weeks.
And we had to put Argentina back in there for another 2 weeks.
Yeah, some take longer for sure. That is true.
We got her from the Mustang Leadership Program for Inner City Girls out of Chattanooga. They do dressage up there. She'd been there for 11 years. Okay. When we got her, she was 12 and now she's a beautiful horse. She's a flea bitten, but they think she broke her neck when she went during the roundup.
Because she was
as a 6-month-old.
Well, she was orphaned when they got her out of the corral. She was an orphan. So that happened, but no one knew because she was a baby and she probably had a hairline fracture, right? And it healed enough that she did dressage all those years. She was great, and until she started to develop arthritis and got a little irritable, a lot irritable.
A lot irritable.
She can be irritable some days.
Oh yeah.
But the neat part about it, she's got thousands of rides on.
Yes.
So,
and she's great with kids.
She loves kids.
If a kid comes there, she is running to find where
those are her people.
Run up.
Yeah. And she'll then just put her head down like this so that the kid can rub on her. It's just amazing. But the thing about her, every one of the horses, again, has a story. So Argentina's story was she grew up in a very fancy barn, right? Very fancy. Like if she pooped on those shavings, it was picked up pretty quick. And so she got out of the trailer at our place and she was like, what is this place? There's this red dirt. There's no shavings, So it's kind of like a kid going to a new school. right? And with military kids, they move all the time. Their family moves a lot, and so they move a lot. So Argentina is a good one to give that example of that. She came to a new place and she didn't fit in. And because she also grew up in stalls, she really didn't know how to get along. And we have our mares and our geldings mixed together.
It's a herd.
It's a herd. Even the donkeys are all together, right? So she was she was not good. Like when we finally let her out after 2 weeks, right? She would like harass them. And then they would get upset with her. And then Samson, who was the young one, he would stalk her, like being a creeper. And so she got freaked out, and she freaked out so much, agitated. She's definitely got some Arab in her because she's got that white, and
she's excited.
She got the head shape.
And she said the excitability, right? And so she just took off running, ran right into the fence, over the fence, out into the road.
Oh no.
And she was just whole body shaking. So we put her in 2 weeks more. But when we tell that story, this is why it takes so long and why we don't need to ride, right? Because when we tell that story, almost anyone can identify with being somewhere where they didn't fit in and that there wasn't maybe someone to protect them, right?
Yeah.
Or guide them how to fit in. So it was our responsibility. We had to guide Argentina how to fit in. We had to teach her. And we didn't really necessarily need to teach the herd how, because the herd was just being a herd. They were doing what they do and establishing their positions.
Mm-hmm.
We needed to teach Argentina how to.
She really didn't understand. She didn't have the herd dynamics.
Yeah.
So that, you've got the lead mare, and then you have somebody else under that, and somebody else under that, and somebody on the bottom.
Right.
She started out, she tried going for the top, and that didn't work.
They weren't quite ready for that.
She ended up on the bottom for a little while. And I think right now she's probably second from the bottom. I think Artemis is probably on the bottom.
Yeah, but Artemis is okay with it.
Yeah,
really.
She doesn't care.
No.
That's her spot.
Yeah.
But so, Grace is our lead mare.
Grace, until Grace, the one that had no confidence when we first got her, she is our lead mare with great confidence. And she is our strong, steady. It's amazing. I get tearful thinking about it because before we decided to add any other mares, we talked with her, Dave and I both, together and separate. And we said, look, we promised you that this would be your herd. And we wanted, I'm going to tearful tell the story because we just wanted her to know that we didn't want her. I kept saying to Dave, like, I don't think we should bring another mare in here. We should just get geldings because I don't want her to think that we didn't trust her. And she just had this peace about her. And I said, I think she's okay. And he said, I think she's okay too. And she did amazing the first time we brought another mare in. She just told her where she needed to belong. And it wasn't at the top. Yep. But she didn't hurt her. She didn't. And she told everyone else, leave her alone. Yeah. Right? It was great.
There's a little piece we didn't talk about. So when I brought Super Moose home, again, Samson was too young. He was 3-year-old. Moose and Grace bonded. And then here I show up 9 weeks later with Blaze, who used to be the herd stallion, and he wants to take his position back. And that was the only time I've ever interfered with the goings-on of the herd because Moose and Blaze were fighting it. And Moose went for Blaze's throat. He's shorter. So that's the place he goes when they're going up. And I broke that up. I got out there whips and snapping and just making a lot of noise so they'd break it up. And they did. Yeah. That's the only time I've ever broken it up. And for a while there, Blaze was running the herd with Grace. When we brought Dasani in, Dasani bonded pretty much with Blaze, and Moose and Grace went back to being Moose and Grace, which was pretty neat because usually you see the herd dynamics. It's like, they're all mine. But Blaze isn't like that. It's funny. So we talk about getting the goddess Artemis, which was the Mother's Day gift. She was actually gated. Now, her and Samson have bonded. So now you we got Dasani after that. She's sort of left out in the cold because there's nobody really there individually. So, but she hangs around Blaze some, but they always have a kickoff when they kick at each other and they bite at each other. And it's not, there's no damage being done. It's just, it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
See, you realize where the actual herd dynamics is. And now we just got our last, after we got Dasani, she was the last one for 2023. We got the two big boys in 2024 in March. Those are the two draft horses, Sir Maximus and Sir Orion. We got them in March of last year. And then the last one we got our 8th Mustang and 10th horse, was Pippi Longstocking. She came to us in December. I went and picked her up. You've got Dasani, Argentina, and Pippi Longstocking all came from that program for inner city girls, the Mustang program for inner city girls out of Chattanooga. Again, Dasani she's Greenbroke. She does well, but when we got her, she was 7, and she has some arthritis issues. And then Pippi was trained, and they're worried about her growth plates, so they didn't want to keep her up there. She's only a 3-year-old, so she's mixed in well.
Originally, the big boys, we thought we were going to have to keep them separate because they were obviously workhorses, right? And they were sent to slaughter because they had injuries or they were old. And by the time we got them, it was actually our tip trainer in Leeds who called us and said, look, there's these 2 horses and they're in a kill pen and I want to rescue them. Will you take them? And we said, oh boy, I knew how much that was going to cost to feed them.
Yeah.
But what happened for Dave was, think about it. Here are these horses in their close to 20s, mid-20s for one of them. And they'd worked all their lives, just like Dave worked all his life in the military. And then they basically said, we don't want you anymore. Right, throw you out. And so I could see for him that this was important. And, they got them to our house. They had to get a special trailer because they're so huge. And they were each about 600 pounds underweight.
Goodness.
So
every rib was showing,
every bone.
The hips, the hollow between the hips and the ribs were like this.
Yeah, it was bad.
It was bad.
And it was like necrotic skin, one of them where all the harnesses were, it was all scar tissue that was all open and either bleeding or black and the skin was falling off. So it took a lot of care, and we've built them up and they're great. And at first when we got them, they definitely didn't trust people. So one of them would growl. Like I'd never heard a horse.
That's unusual, right?
Well, I guess it's not unusual for drafts, which I didn't know that, right? Like
I didn't either.
They're very different, right? And so imagine Mustangs and now drafts. So we kept them separate because we didn't know what to do, and their drafts are so big, but they're not as agile, but they can kick.
Right. They have a lot of power behind them.
It's fun to watch them run. They don't do that very often, but it's fun to watch them run.
Right. And so we really worked on building them up. And then, when I say the growling, kind of what we discovered was they were very anxious around their feet. The first time the vet came out, they had to anesthetize them to even get there were shoes on one of them on the front.
All 4.
Was it all 4?
Yeah, we got 2 of them off,
okay.
And then we had to wait until the other ones fell off.
So because they were very aggressive towards people touching their feet. And we still didn't understand why, right? And so then we built stocks. So we thought, well, we'll build stocks and we can get them in these stocks. So we built these huge, crazy stocks. They were great. They went in the stocks.
They walk right in it.
Yeah, walk right in. But don't touch their feet. Right. So it was probably about a month or so ago, I noticed blood on one of their feet and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to touch you, so he let me touch him. And it was all sores all back here. And then when I touched around, it's all scar tissue. So they must have chained them to that's how they tie them. Right.
And that's the same leg that's got the bad tendon up in the knee area.
So he has pretty bad arthritis and other issues, that particular one. So we're just continuing to take our time and be gentle, right? And treat them the best we can with medicines and things like that. One of them takes a daily pill. The other one takes a daily, like a natural supplement to try to help relieve some of the pain. But integrating them into the herd, it's been very interesting to see that.
Yeah, because we had them separated in a couple acres from the herd itself, and the herd itself had 5 acres or 5 to 7 acres that they were able to run in, but they were nose to nose during that entire time. And then we decided to take down everything because I tore down the arena, which was around the first 3 stalls that we built, and I'm building a full arena all the way around now, stalls all the way around that arena, because we got We got an Alabama Department of Veterans Affairs grant to finish the 6 houses, which we haven't really talked about. We might get into that, but we're talking horses right now.
Yeah, it's a lot.
A 54 by 70 foot pole barn out there that we got put up through that. We're in transition. All of our corral panels ended up being temporary stalls outside, because the only time we put them in a stall is when we feed them. We don't put horses in stalls other than that, or when we do when the farrier comes, and most of the time she does them out in the open.
Yeah.
He doesn't care.
So they have the whole range of the 37 acres. It's all fenced
All
in.
of them.
And that's with the pond, and that's the donkeys and the big horses.
How
and
nice.
the veterans house that we have that veterans come and stay at, the horses go right up to it. Like, so they could come out in the morning and have their coffee, and there's horses or donkeys.
There's
right
their herd of horses.
Yeah.
And we got one donkey that walks right up to the door.
Right up the steps.
Up the stairs.
Yeah.
So let me in, huh?
Right.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So part of what our mission is, if you go on to our, and I'll get this part in there, right? Samson Strength Sustainable Veterans Project.
On Facebook.
On Facebook. And also if you Google search that, or if you go on Facebook, it'll take you right to our website, is that we believe that veterans, in particular our target population, are men. They're higher risk for suicide. They're higher risk for substance use disorders. And it's very difficult to find placements for them for transitional housing. Reason being is because it's not that it's easy and really easy for others, but for someone that's actually got significant physical disabilities, they qualify for more things, right? Or for women with children, they qualify for different services.
There's already programs out there.
Right. So a lot of young men, I say young men, but really we've had people from the age of early 20s up until 60s. There's not a whole lot of places for them. So they're staying on someone's couch, or they're borrowing a camper, or they're doing this or they're doing that, but they're not really going anywhere, right? They're considered homeless. And we say transitional, not because necessarily we're looking at transitional all the time from military to civilian life, but what we look at is that these guys very often never transition to civilian life. And so we're providing transitional services now where they can come, they can learn about what their benefits are with the VA, with the government, learn about educational opportunities, vocational opportunities. While they're with us, we engage them in doing things with the horses. We have an aquaponics project, so we've got fish and plants in our greenhouse. We do gardening, we do canning, and we have a freeze dryer, and all of those things we're trying to teach sustainable living, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we engage them in that when they're there, if they want to. We don't force them to. We do kind of have an expectation that someone will be participating with us on the farm, right?
We usually look for 5 to 8 hours a week volunteer time.
Yeah. And which is usually, why don't you come out and feed the horses with us in the morning? And the reason we do that is because we usually feed by 7 a.m. So we have an expectation you're up and out of your house.
Getting up and going.
Right.
Yeah.
And so after that, then we can say, okay, what's your plan for the day, right? And what are some things? We like to engage them in involvement in the community. So when there's an older veteran that might need a ride somewhere, if our veteran can drive, we ask them to do that. We do a lot. That's really what we want to do, is get them moving forward, right? And so again, it's transitional housing. It's small footprint homes. If you go on our Facebook page and our website, you can see what they look like. The homes that we're building on that other piece of property, there's 6 homes being built, the ones Dave was talking about. 5 of them will house 2 people each. Part of what we've learned, like you said, everything's a learning process with horses and humans.
It sure
right?
is. Yep.
Is that if it's really, really comfortable there, people don't want to leave. I can tell you how comfortable it is down there. Every once in a while, it's so quiet down there, and it sits on a 3.5 acre pond. So you overlook the pond, and they're sitting outside, and it's just a little 1-bedroom, bath, kitchen area with a nice comfy chair. Every once in a while, I go down there.
Yeah, sounds great.
And Dave's like, where are you at? At the house, right? The tiny house. But it is a very peaceful place. And that's part of what we want. And what we notice when guys come there, and they can't believe how quiet it is.
And
yeah.
what we had when we had the open house this weekend is quite a few people that were coming through were talking about how peaceful that housing area was, because you can see it a little bit from the road, but not much. Most of it you can't see. It's down in a little hollow. I kept the big trees that were in the center of it. So that, because normal contractors, what would they do? It's all gone, put it on, put it up, and then start growing new stuff. I took the time and we built around old growth so that we had that already in place. And it makes a big difference.
And that's the piece I think too, is that you can see, we're not really great at tooting our own horn, but we took a lot of time we didn't just say this is where they're going to go. And whatever we did, right, is when Dave places the barn, like if you look at the photo on the Facebook page, it's a picture looking down into the barn on a foggy day with the fog on the mist on the pond. And one of the big horses is standing in there. when he put that barn on in that position, I was like, what the heck is he
Because
doing?
it's not square with anything.
Yeah, I'm
But
thinking
what it's square with is the prevailing wind.
is the wind. He stood out there and he felt it, you know. That's what I was like, why are you putting it there? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, right? It doesn't make sense how you're doing this or how you're doing that. He's like, just wait, you know, because I don't think that way he thinks.
No. We have very different thought patterns.
But
yeah, I know how that goes.
yeah, but that's the other part where we can talk and share. And when we're doing this, when we do the work with couples, right? We don't think the same. And very often, because we don't think the same, we butt heads.
Yeah.
Right? And then someone has to step back and say, okay, look, let's just slow down here.
And it's usually not me. I got no fuse and no filter anymore.
Yeah. Well, I've gotten better at it being me, because it used to be where I was like, I'm toe to toe with this boy. And I'll tell you what, you want that psychological stuff, man? I'm good at that. Right. So, but we joke about it and we talk about it now. And I think that also helps in those experiences, you know?
Sure.
So are there any questions that you have? And we've talked for an hour.
Yeah, I know. The time is flying by. I thought it would be good to talk about, you kind of mentioned, both of you, how the horses have helped you separately, to talk about maybe that and how you drew that into your setup, that horses are going to be part of this service that we're providing.
Well, the big piece about it has been starting with the Masterson for me. Because again, I didn't start working with horses until 2021 when we got to.
Yeah, you guys went fast.
Oh, yeah. I'm not arguing the point.
0 to 60.
Yeah, but there's no more. We've been offered horses and we've turned them down because we have what we need in our herd to work with the equine experiential learning and training. We don't need to add any more to that. It takes a while for a horse to integrate into that. Pippi was the last one. She came in December and she just fell right in because, like I said, she's a 3-year-old, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, life's easy when you're young and don't know any better. You just take whatever's coming at you.
Yeah.
But working with the Masterson for me has allowed me to reach out and get in touch with the horses. It makes such a big difference for me. Like I said, when I went back up to Ohio in mid-September 2022 to work with Blaze and see about getting him trained, I started working the Masterson piece because I'd just been to the course. And it's like,
yeah, let's try this stuff out.
It works. And I would work with some of the other horses in the barn. And it was funny because the barn would calm down. The whole barn. Not just the horse, but the barn, because this one would settle down.
An entire change in energy.
And the energy would change and you'd see it. And I went from, again, Blaze, when he would go poop and post, the energy just flattened. Everything just, everything went up. And having worked with him, I still don't have full touch on him 3 years later, or 2.5 years later. But I'll walk up to him in the middle of the field, scratch his head, scratch his ears. Sometimes he'll let me work down. Just the last 2 months, he's really started letting me work his side and his back. But he needs to get used to it because it's such a different feeling for him. And
I think we forget that sometimes, how different the world we're bringing them into is.
And I take it at his pace. And I've had people say, how come you don't? Because I don't need it.
Yeah.
I don't care whether I ride him or not. That's not my goal. My goal is for him to trust me. That's the key.
Beautiful.
So I work with him, and currently he does. Kathy got a good video last week of that. I think it was Saturday, Sunday, something like that. But she got a good video of me working with him. And, it's all about respect. And when he pulls away, I just back off and then take a couple of seconds to step back in. Sometimes it takes 3 times and then it'll let me in. But it is what it is. Now, where was I going with this?
Like how it's helped you too.
Working with the other horses, I worked with all of the different horses. The 2 big guys, the day after we got them there, again, we talked about Orion grunting and just sort of.
It's like growling.
Yeah, he just.
If you get too close in his space, that's what he was doing, or too.
Yeah,
close.
he's letting you know this is not okay.
But I worked with him with the Masterson piece and was working his bladder meridian from this far away. I was 6 foot away and just worked 45 minutes one side, 45 minutes the other side, and could see the tension release and the relaxation that he was getting. And the next day we had 4 boys grooming him. The change was that tremendous. And he's been like that since. He has some days. He's kicked at me once, but that's because it was on ice and I was trying to move him. And that was my fault. And I realized it afterwards. But
Yeah.
I stay off to the side. I don't get right behind.
They let us know when something's not right with them.
Working with the horses has brought me down. It helps me to center. It helps me to ground. And I love being out there with them. I can't wait till I get everything built so I can spend more time with them.
Yeah. Hopefully, if you guys don't take on more projects.
No. I'm pretty much done after this. Once we finish with this and the rescue area, I'm done.
Yeah.
For me, I believed in the power of horses, right? I've always believed in the power of horses. When I was in grad school and doing my graduate research, I was in Tennessee at Austin Peay State University, and we had a research requirement. And I said, I want to study horses and humans. And they looked at me like I was crazy. Through the IRB, which is, you've got to go through an institutional review board, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to do it. How are you going to find anyone? I don't know. I'll find someone. So at that time, I found a woman named Boo McDaniel, who was in New Hampshire, and she was starting to look at equine facilitated mental health way back when. This was 1998, 99. And so I said, I want to do this research. She goes, well, I think I have just the place to do it, right? You can use our horses, even though I'm in Tennessee and you're in New Hampshire. So I went and I met them and everything. And we worked together with the local middle school and the school guidance counselor. And we had students do an 8-week program. And so there was a control group that did nothing, stayed at the school. And then there was a group that came to the program. And they basically for 8 weeks just went an hour a week and they groomed the horses. They learned about, like parts of the horse care, the saddle and all that. And I think the last day they probably had a ride, right? It was a riding, but it was only 8 hours total. And we did a self-esteem measure and a child's depression measure. And we saw significant results in those 8 weeks, and statistically significant. Like my professors were blown away, right? And it was really exciting. And so that research kind of spearheaded some other research to happen after I graduated and whatever, not at my university, but for Boo and the equine facilitated mental health world. And so, if you've done much about looking into it, is there's very little research that actually, it's anecdotal. It's what we say, like how when we saw it make a difference, this person was able to get through this barrier or whatever, but there's not actual documented scientific research. So there's more. And the Horses for Mental Health, which Dave and I are a part of, and I'm going to bring that in right now.
Yeah, tell us about it.
So Horses for Mental Health is actually international, but they do programs where they actually fund research to look at what are the benefits, where are the benefits. There's research for hippotherapy, right? Because it's easy to measure physical change. It's not as easy to measure the psychological or the emotional change. So they're starting to look more at that. My focus and our focus, of course, is veterans. So we look a lot at trauma. So there's a trauma measurement scale called the PTS or the PCL, post-traumatic checklist. And so those are used pre-test and a post-test checklist to kind of see if there are changes in the person's, what they're experiencing for trauma responses or experiences. There's also self-esteem. There's also like a connectedness assessment. How do people feel connected to themselves, to others around them, that we do a pre and a post measure. There's a lot of research that's coming out right now about that. Another part of Horses for Mental Health is every year for the last 4 years during the month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, they do a campaign called As Seen Through Horses. And we were invited to be one of the 95 nonprofits in the United States, Ireland, and Canada. And so it starts tomorrow, May 1st. I'm not sure when this is going to show, but
probably a little bit after that. So it's probably already started by the time people are hearing this, but should be in full swing.
So the Horses for Mental Health and the As Seen Through Horses campaign is an amazing campaign. So the Horses for Mental Health obtained sponsors that would cover a fundraising platform. So when someone donates to the nonprofit, like our nonprofit, which is one of the 95, all the money that they donate comes directly to us. They don't take a fee. They don't take anything like that. So if I donate $10, the nonprofit gets $10 because it's being sponsored by the large sponsors, which is great. So we'll be putting out videos during the month of May on our Facebook page, on our Instagram as well, which is the Samson Strength. But it's really to raise awareness about the benefits of Horses for Mental Health. There's some amazing videos that they have put together. They share about veterans and their experiences. We've had veterans that have come here and they've spent time with Dave and I and the horses, and they leave and they say, this is the most relaxed I've felt, or they go home and their family member sends a message saying, I don't know what happened there, but they're talking today. Right. We've had the same thing with kids. Yeah, lots with kids.
Tell us the little story, because that makes a big difference.
Which one about?
Amos.
Okay.
The first two.
Yeah. So we had Samson and Moose had laid down out in the field, right? And, the Mustangs, you know how they are. They're just so what you see is what you get. They're present when they're feeling
yes.
and whatnot, right? And so I said, well, I figured Samson would be fine, right? Because he's the laid back, kind of goofy, but laid back. So the boys went over and they just laid down with Samson. He was snoring and everything, and they're just loving on him. And then the other boy walked around to Moose, and Moose, no one had ever sat next to Moose or gone next to Moose when he was laying down. So
he always gets up when you go by him.
Gets up right away.
Yeah.
So he got
very common.
enough, right, that I got nervous, right? And so I'm videotaping it, and at the same time I'm thinking, okay, calm down, right? Take a breath.
Yeah.
This young man, kind of like Dave did that first day with the brush walking into that Mustang, he just walked right over to him and Moose didn't move. And he started petting him and he sat down with Moose. Moose was set up, his head was up, but he was pretty relaxed. And he started touching either side of his face and he was just petting him. And on the video, I heard him say, I do believe this is the most relaxed I've ever been in my life.
Yeah, he says, Miss Kathy, this is the most relaxed I've ever been in my life.
Yes.
Now this is a 12 or 13-year-old boy.
Yes. It was just amazing, right? And for him, I think in that moment, it created such a level of confidence and security that he felt comfortable really engaging with all the horses. And he's one of our, he really, I'll say, go out, can you go out and get the big boys? And he'll just go out and get the big boys, right? And I'll say, do you feel comfortable grooming the big boys? He's like, oh yeah, I got it, Miss Kathy, right? And he does. And they're all have learned so much about how to be in tune with the horses and in tune with themselves. And their mom has shared with us the confidence that she's seen. And so that's been really, really great to see that.
The mother and father are both prior service
veterans.
He retired from the service. She got out after about 10.
Yeah. Then we've had other kids that have come out and with a lot of anxiety prior to, and we say, just bring them out, and on the ride home, I'll get a message, I can't believe she can't stop talking about it, right? She's talking about this horse. And one person drove an hour and a half to get here. And of course, the kids were complaining on the way here, but then on the way home, they stopped talking about it. So I gave them a referral to a closer barn where they might be able to do some stuff. And the little girl said, but is Grace going to be there? If Grace isn't there, I don't want to go. And so it's just amazing to me because I think, there's this thing about the Mustangs that's so different. I'm not saying you can't fall in love with a domestic horse. You absolutely can.
Yeah, for sure.
But when Mustangs trust, they give it all. And even Blaze's thing with him is it's kind of like he's aloof. Like, look, I allowed you people to bring me here, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to take charge of this herd for you. I'll make sure, but don't push it, right?
Yeah.
And we're
I'm a herd stallion. What are you guys thinking you're doing?
Right. And the part that to me is so why he gets along with Dave so great is because Dave was, he was an officer. He started out enlisted and he worked his way up. Thing about Blaze, he didn't just walk into the stallion role.
Yeah. Nobody handed it to him. Yep. Either way.
You got the scars to prove it.
Right.
Right.
And there's this part of don't tell me what you want me to do. And they get along great, these two.
Yeah. They understand each other.
And for me, I just every time I marvel, right? And like this past weekend when we had the Mustangs, we had the open house. So we brought Moose and Grayson. And they were in an area. And at first I had the round pen and I had them because I wasn't sure how they were going to react. They'd never been around that many people.
Mm-hmm.
I had the round pen. They were outside the round pen. All the people and the horses were inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
A person with each horse that handles them, that knows them, one of the students. And we had that morning had hung flags up by the barn. And I'm thinking, oh, this is
just to make it more exciting.
You see what I'm going with this, right?
Yeah, I can feel it. The anxiety.
But they didn't even react. And part of it is because when we had the arena before, I would hang up kites, Walmart kites, to fly whenever the wind came.
We flew them off poles and stood off the...
Oh, fun.
Up high enough. And so they were used to it. So they kind of looked at the flags like, huh, what's that? And then they didn't react.
Another weird thing they're humans doing.
By mid-morning, people coming, I just said, oh, just come on in. So they all came in. And they're all around the horses, and we're talking about the horses, and the horses were so great, and I was so impressed with what it really helped me to see is that this herd trusts me, because I was the person that was doing the work that day. And then when Dave came, they were the same. They trust that we're going to keep them safe.
Yeah. And the energy that you're going to bring to them, that you were, and I think that just shows like you were there to protect them, until you saw everything was okay. I think they know that.
Yeah. I think they know that too.
And I mean, when you walk in and you just bring your energy down, ground yourself, it makes a big difference because, like I said, I've watched the barn when I was up north change. I've seen it change down here too. Over the years, Blaze has gone from the pop to just...
He just pays attention.
He just pays attention. He's dropped the heavy duty stallion.
The fight, flighter, freeze.
Right.
And we talk a lot about fight, flighter, freeze, right? And how Mustangs are the perfect example of that for veterans.
Yeah, very good visual for how it works in us as well.
Right. When the donkeys got out that day, Dave and I were on the way to a wedding. So, and then our friends, the father of the boys and one of the boys came to try to get the donkeys in. And what he said to us was that Blaze, he had his head way up high and he was actually kind of like rearing up, like, pay attention. I'm in charge of this herd. I don't know who you people are and what are you doing, right, to my herd. We've never seen that, like, at least not recent.
No.
But what it made me realize is that, as soon as we got there, they all walked away, right? They're all calm.
There goes it.
But that they still, it's just like anything else. When a new person comes on the scene, right, everyone's paying attention. Like, think about it, how you relate it to high school, middle school, elementary. The new kid shows up. Everyone pays attention. If something comes in that's a threat, everyone pays attention, right? But how do they pay attention? There's one that pays attention, prepared to step in. And then there's others that just kind of get away, right? And so that's the part, like you said, everything can be related to human behavior. And so when I did that equine thing in grad school, before I did it, I took a week-long course in equine experiential therapy. It was through Onsite, which was in Tennessee, and the Sierra Tucson program. And so they came out and taught us about how to work with horses as therapists, right? And it really helped me to understand how to integrate that, that everything can be used. And that what they did there and what we do with ours is that we tell the stories of everyone in the herd, right? Tell the story about the different horses before we even pair you up with a horse. And then we ask you to pick which horse you'd like to work with. Mm-hmm. Okay. And people will either like gravitate towards Blaze because he's the unworkable. He's the elusive, right?
Yeah. He's the challenge, the tough one.
And I'm always like, yeah, okay, whatever. Go ahead, try it, or they'll go to like Grace with a story, right? Or Argentina with a story, how she was orphaned, right? Or the big boys because of their suffering, right? Or because they're just so massive, And it's just so interesting to see what they can then, you can take that into who are you and how do you present? Like when you go get a new job, right? How do you react and respond when you go to a new job? What's the position you immediately gravitate towards, right? How do you react and respond in a relationship, in an interpersonal relationship? If you're in a person that's been in domestic violence situations or, potentially sexual traumatic situations, what type of people are you getting in relationships with? It'll show up in the interaction with the horses, which then can be discussed in a therapeutic way.
Yeah.
Kathy's brought the guys from where she works during the week.
I work at a substance use inpatient program.
Yeah. She brought them down there. We've had actually, when the corral was there, or the arena, we'd sit everybody in a chair in the arena and just let the horses wander through. Mm-hmm. Fun to watch.
Who the horses would pick.
Yeah.
And then we would ask them, why do you think they picked you? Why did they come to you? What was it about? Well, they were more inviting, right? They were more welcoming to the person. What was it about their energy? Are they blocked? And so all of these things, you don't have to be a therapist to do it. It's not therapy per se, although it can be integrated into therapy.
It's therapeutic.
It's therapeutic.
Therapeutic for sure.
Right. The connection, mind, body, spirit, all of those components, right? The body part, my breath. I'm learning about breathing and slowing my breath down. And I'm not doing it for myself. We tell them by slowing down your breath, you help the horse to feel safe.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
That's a common theme I've seen is that people aren't willing to do it for themselves, but it's like when they have someone else that they feel like is depending on them, it's like, okay, maybe I can do this thing now.
Especially an animal that might be scared.
Yeah, because you don't want to, because as soon as you hold your breath, What's a horse do? It takes a deep breath, stops, and gets ready to fly.
Yeah, they feel the tension, whether you do or not. I think a lot of times we don't feel it
So,
until we see their reaction.
one of the big things I force myself to do around the horses is accentuate my breathing. So when I'm working with Masterson with them, they hear me breathing.
Which when I do that around him, because he's driving me nuts, he goes, "All right, you're breathing again. Like, why are you breathing like that?" Now maybe you realize
You
why.
need to take the energy down.
No, I wasn't thinking about you. I'm thinking about myself. So that's pretty much it. I mean, that's how it affects us, I think. I mean, it's really, I'm just amazed every day. I'm so grateful that they allow us to be a part of their world.
Yeah, there is something really special that they like us. I mean, I've said that before, but they seem to enjoy being around us with all the craziness and trying to figure it out that we bring to them.
I usually walk out every morning, and when I walk out every morning, it's like, I give a call out.
Yeah.
Blaze will respond. Grace will respond. Grace wants food. Blaze is saying hi. And sometimes we get one more, but it's hard to tell who that one is. And then sometimes the big boys answer. I think Maximus answers occasionally. But the guaranteed one pretty much is Blaze and Grace. Grace is looking for food.
Yeah, that is a very common reason why they like us, I'm sure.
Yes.
But I think it's deeper also.
I think it's deeper also, too, because what's fascinating for me is that when we bring people out and the herd is out and about, and I say, well, let's walk down and see the herd, right? You know, sometimes we'll take a chair or whatever. Or sometimes if the person can't walk real well, we'll take the golf cart down, you know. And the horses are curious. They want to see, who is this person, you know?
Who you got today?
And we used to, but we don't anymore. We don't do treat rewards because then they just got too pushy. So we don't do that anymore. They get fed when they get fed, and that's it, right? If they get a treat, they get it in there. Basically, they just come because they want to see who we are, right? And then there's some that want attention, and they will stay and they want attention. Our donkeys are notorious from coming, running, and turning their butt to you because they want a butt rub.
Yeah.
At Olive, we've got a hill. It's about 250 feet long. And she came around the edge of the fence, put her ears flat back, and I'm standing at the bottom by the feed shed, tore down the hill and spun in front of me. And I thought, oh, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
She wanted a butt rub.
She just wanted a butt
Yeah.
rub.
It was urgent. She didn't want you to leave.
She'll come up and she'll back into you. She'll put that butt back there. And it's not threatening in the least. She wants a butt rub. She wants a butt rub. Jenny wants a butt rub. Sometimes tango, sometimes foxtrot. And then Whiskey, not so much. He hasn't got to that point yet. He's our feral one. Out of all of them, he's the most feral, even over the horses. We've had him since 2017.
It's just his, but we let him be that way.
We let him be that way.
It's a quality of life. That's what our vet says. We'll say something like, well, what should we do about this? She's like, well, they seem pretty happy, you know? So
yeah.
Quality of life.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge gift to give to the animals, to let them be respectful of, yep, this is, you don't enjoy it the way the other ones do, and that's okay.
A lot of times when it was just the donkeys, they were a little bit chunky. They've got some extra, neck muscles.
They're competing with the horses for the food too. But
yeah, probably that, and probably a little more energy and stuff going on for them to do.
Well, we thank you so much, Shalise.
Thank you guys for being here. Your program sounds absolutely incredible. From your houses, I can just see how someone could go there and just like be able to breathe for a minute, to decompress from all the stuff we take in our modern human world. And, you know, with the work you're doing with the Mustangs, I think it's incredible. The people that are able to identify how powerful that is, you know, and we don't use horses for work like they used to, but I really think that a big part of them being here for us now is because this world we live in is overwhelming and overstimulating, and it's hard, and we're facing challenges. And I think they're kind of there to be like, hey, it's okay. Like, you can breathe and, you know, you can feel safe here. And I think that's what you're providing for people, which is really beautiful to see. The pictures, every time you send me a picture, it's just an incredible picture of how you can see that connection with the horses and the humans. And, you know, even through the picture, you can feel just the peace and serenity and healing that's taking place by just being able to be in a place that's safe and beautiful and calm and have that really great connection. So I really commend you guys for the work you're doing. I'm glad we were able to connect and talk about it. And maybe to end with, just give a quick like where can people find the campaign? A quick, and we'll include this in notes, but quick best place to find you.
So it's Samson Strength Sustainable Veterans Project is our Facebook page. And that's probably the best, most up to date. Although we have recently had a donation of our website. And so our website, which is, if you Google it, it's either sssvp.org, and that'll pop it up when you Google it, or Samson Strength Sustainable Veterans Project. We have another version of it, so you want to make sure you're doing Sustainable Veterans Project.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why if you go to the web or the Facebook page, then you can just go directly to the website.
Okay. That's the best place to find everything.
Best place. But if somebody's not on Facebook, if they just Google Samson Strength Sustainable Veterans Project, they'll find it. There's stuff on there about our Horses for Mental Health as Seen Through Horses campaign. It'll be on our Facebook page. We'll be doing live videos throughout the month. We've got people that we're going to have come out and talk to, so that's really great. And your podcast that we're going to have on our Facebook page.
Awesome.
So,
yep,
yeah,
we'll get that up.
Way. And it has contact information like email and phone number and everything also.
Okay. And are there ways that people can support you guys? Is the best way to go through the campaign? Are there other things people can do if they want?
Yeah, so we have a ways to support One Sheet Read is what we call it. We have an Amazon account under Samson Strength Sustainable Veterans Project, SSSVP, and people can go in and purchase items for each one of the homes. So each one of the homes is listed. It's like Veteran Home 1, Veteran Home 2.
Oh, nice.
Yep. So people could, if they just want to buy towels for one of the houses, they could just do that.
A direct contribution right to your doorstep.
Right. There's a PayPal donation link on every page of the website. So if you wanted to go to someplace special, we've put out there the fact that horses cost a certain amount per year. You can donate directly to the horse or
nice.
The program.
To the houses.
And I keep separate spreadsheets, and whatever comes in goes.
Oh, that's neat. So people can pick like the area that feels good to them or that they want to donate to. That's really neat.
And another way to support, which it doesn't cost anything, is if they're on social media, just share it, right?
Yeah.
They might not be able to donate $5 or $10 or whatever, but they might know someone that could, right? And so share about the power of horses, particularly for us, the power of Mustangs and rescued horses and the trust that happens in humans.
Like I said, I worked with the Equus Effect, and they were all domestics. Definitely a little different. The energy is definitely different. But that was 2013, and I didn't know shit anyway.
Yeah, it's been a long learning process. Well, fast, not really that long, a fast learning process.
From 2021 till now, yes, that curve has gone straight up.
Yeah, it's incredible to just hear how quickly things have moved for you and how, you guys just took it on and went for it, which is beautiful. And that, you have the rescue and the Mustangs, both two spectrums of horses that a lot of people consider worthless, to see like they have some really legitimate, powerful things that they can do for people.
And that's the thing. It's like with the big boys, the draft horses. They came to us. They were dying. We got them back to health, and they pass off people get up. People love to hug them.
Yeah,
they're fun to hug.
Yeah.
We've got some pictures out there from this past weekend of some folks hugging them, and I go up to him every morning and I'll scratch his head, put my head on his head, and just hold him. He loves it.
Yeah.
Ryan will let me do that.
Well, and the other part that I find fascinating is most people, and you probably hear this too, the first thing that they think when they're coming out to see horses is that they're going to ride.
Nope.
And the first question they have is, when are we going to ride? And we say, not today. Right. And then they'll say, well, do you ride these big horses? And I said, no, the truth is that those horses worked all their life. Yeah. You see that mark right there on his back? That's where a harness was that went right into his back. Right. And so we've made a promise to them that when they came here, they don't ever have to work if they're
retired.
Right. And so what their job is to just be big, happy guys. Right. So we're never going to ride them.
Yeah.
First of all,
and I think there's a power to that, to being like, horses are about more than riding. I think when we are so focused on riding, that's often when, they're overlooked. They're just something that we want to use for what we want. But that connection, man, it gets strong when you're like, wait, let's work together on this. Like, what's going on? What are you thinking? What is your story? And I love the way you related stories, because I feel that also, it really builds that empathy and connection, not just with the horses, but kind of personal insights with other people, to be able to understand like our stories have meanings and the horse's stories have meanings.
And when you can see a similarity in a non-threatening situation, I'm not looking at myself, I'm looking at this horse, and how like Argentina reacted and responded, right? And how Samson was a goofball and was just creeping on her, and just use that and explain it. And people can be like, they might either be the Argentina or they might be the Samson. Oh, I never really thought that might be how it makes someone feel if I follow him around.
Yeah.
And I just want to get to know him, because that's really what he wanted to do. He wanted to get to know her, but he was just doing it in a way that was creepy, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can use those stories like that, people can see themselves, right? And identify maybe not necessarily what we call in treatment character defects, right? But they could be character traits that get in the way of me having a relationship with other people.
Yeah, and the things that we desire in life or the things we need in life, making some little changes because you're like, it makes sense now.
Right, right.
What are some of the reasons you think it works so fast with horses?
I think horses and dogs are similar, although dogs are predators, right? And horses are prey. I think with horses, because they are prey, and we explain to them that we're predators to them. And so, even though it's 1,000 to 2,000 pound animal, right, that how we react and respond towards them could help them to feel safe or unsafe, right? But I think the reason it happens so fast is because they're just this impressive animal, right? And when you do the Masterson part, when I talked about the search and look for the response, and then you stay and then you release, what we're searching for is so subtle. We're searching for a twitch of the ear, a little twitch of the eye, a little twitch of the lip, right? The obvious ones are when they go, wow, and they yawn, stretch or whatever. But we're asking them to pay attention to that, right? What starts to happen is they become present now. In those moments when they're with the horse, they're out of their head. And so their head gets quiet. There's not all this noise because they really want to see it. They want to see an eye twitch. They want to see, and we'll say some of the horses are more expressive than others. Some of them we know for sure you're going to get a response really fast, right? And so we kind of set it up that that's the one the person will work with that we know needs to have something to try more, right? Whereas another person could be more patient, but they need to be present. And what I find with working with clients is the biggest problem, and you mentioned it, in our society, we're going in so many different directions. We got these freaking things right here.
In our face all the time, in our pockets.
It's a wonderful thing. We're virtual right now. This is great. We have all this, but it gives off an energy. It's all this, and it's an intensity, and we just can't be present. It's not possible, okay, unless we distance ourselves from that for a bit. And then when we distance ourselves from that for a bit, if we don't have something else to focus on, we lose our mind because we're so connected to this, right? So when we take them and have them touch this horse and go really slow, and then they realize, I just did that. I touched the horse. We explain that what you're searching for is a point of where the horse is holding tension, right? And so when the horse has the response, the tension it's like us when we go, oh, wow, that feels good, right? So they are doing it. It's very empowering. And then they want more, and the bladder meridian's a long line. It goes from all the way up there, all the way down to the back of the leg, right? And you got to do it on both sides. If you did the entire horse for all the Masterson's things, it's like an hour and a half.
A couple hours.
Yeah, a couple hours. We don't teach them that. All we teach them is the bladder meridian. It's a simple technique.
And it's because anybody can do the bladder meridian. It causes no pain or damage to the horse in any way, shape, or form. And it's something they can all do to get more in touch with their own horse. Right.
With their own horse and really with themselves, right?
Yeah.
Because what they'll say is, and one of the other things I do is I always take photos, right? I ask permission, can I take your photo? And at first they might be a little bit like, I said, no, but if you don't want me to post it anywhere, I won't, but I'll just send it to you. And what I found is that when you send a picture after their day and their experience, they look at it a lot, right? And they remember how they felt physiologically when they were with that horse. And so not only did they have that experience in that however long time they were with us, now they're taking that experience and continuing to re-experience the positive instead of the negative. Because the way the brain works is our brain re-experiences things, right? And it's trying to figure it out. It's trying to process it, right? And it doesn't usually re-experience good things.
Yeah. Yeah, we do like those negative things to let them run away.
Well, it's our survival part of our brain. It's not what's wrong with us. It's what's right with us. But the message it's getting is that we're under attack. So it pays attention to the scary things. things, right? So we need to create a new pathway in the brain for them to start noticing the good things. And so one of the ways to do it is to initially have this experience, because while the horse is having a physiological response, so is the human. Okay? Heart rate's lowering, blood pressure's lowering, all of these things. They've done research about it, and I believe it, right?
The 3 or 4 minutes that you spend with the horse can last 6 to 8 hours
After you leave. But it can last even longer if you can hold yourself in that memory. Just like if you think about the physiological response we can have to a traumatic event can last a lifetime.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
so,
we can relive it in our head.
Right.
Both ways.
If we can rewire the brain, create a new neural pathway to re-experience this positive physiological feeling, right? Then the brain can tap into it when it's having a hard time. They can open up their phone and take a look at themselves with that horse and remember the feeling they had in their body.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm a therapist. That's what I do, right? But I don't do therapy here. That's not what I do. I do this equine experience. But what it can do is it can definitely springboard the work that a person could do in therapy. Or the majority of people, to be honest, that come out here, they're not going to therapy. I wish they would. And so maybe some of what happens is I dispel the myth about what therapy's about, and go find a therapist. But a lot of them having this experience is enough for them to realize I can feel better than I feel. I can feel connected to myself. I can be vulnerable and love a person. And although there might be a chance that it could hurt, I'm willing to take that chance because the feeling that I have when I open myself up to it is by far greater than the feeling I have when I don't.
Yeah.
That's horses in a nutshell.
That's horses.
Yeah. They are incredible.
It doesn't happen in in an office, right? Like, I have people don't come to this office. It just looks like this because I do the virtual thing, right? So, but even when I do therapy with the guys, that's the other part. Like what I learned in a Masterson with horses, I have now applied to my therapy. When I thought when I thought I couldn't learn anything more about how to be a therapist after 30 some years of doing this, right? And I thought I've seen it all, which I should never say that because then something happens the next day. But
yeah.
I have used that concept of search, find the response, stay there for a second, and then release. I've taught it to my interns, counseling interns. And I said, this is what I learned working with horses, right? When I work with people at work that are completely out of control, right? Like they're so hyper, non-regulated emotionally, right? And maybe they're experiencing psychosis or whatever it is. When I experience that, I think of myself going into a pen with a Mustang, a wild Mustang. And I first thing I do is I check my breath. I notice where I need to escape, just like I would with a Mustang. Not because I think they're going to attack me and hurt me intentionally, but because I need to be smart. I need to take care of myself, right?
And pay attention to their communications.
Pay attention. I never really thought that way with domestics, right? I just went in and got the horse.
Yeah, you did whatever was on the plan for today.
Right. I never thought that way until I experienced Mustangs, And at first, my first thought was if they could kill me, right? And so then I thought, what the heck am I doing at almost 60 years old? We're over 60 now.
Yeah. But, gathering Mustangs.
Right, gathering Mustangs and doing this. But what I've learned is I've been provided an opportunity to have an even greater experience in a human-to-human contact because of the experience that I've had as a therapist with Mustangs.
And the majority of Mustangs aren't interested in hurting.
No.
When I was working with Blaze, I actually fell on his butt a couple of times where my hand hit his butt when I was working with him. And he could have put me across the corral. He just wanted to get away.
That's why.
Yeah.
And, that to me was an awareness. It's just, every horse is different. But the fact that he was allowing that to happen and not responding in a negative response, I take that into account too. I've learned now, I take him in his feed bowl because I take it in every morning and put it in there for him on the bars. He's the only one I do it with. Everybody else, I just stick it to the bars. I walk in with him, scratch his head, walk over, put it on the thing, and then walk out behind him. 6 months ago, I wouldn't have been anywhere near him in the back end. Yeah. Now I'm walking about this far from him. He's comfortable. I'm comfortable. And it's made a big difference. It's a trust issue.
You're right. Naturally they are very gentle until they feel threatened
Correct.
in some way, which sometimes doesn't make sense to us because we're like, why should you be scared of that? Why should this bother you? But they'll tell us I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel safe. I don't have that trust.
And think about it, it's really the same as people. For the most part, people don't want to hurt you, right?
Mm-hmm.
If someone's had a traumatic experience by another human being, right, they're going to treat us the same way. They're going to fight, flight, or freeze. That's what they're going to do, right? And that's not what's wrong with us. It's what's right with us. It's trying to keep us safe. But it's our responsibility, like if we're working with the Mustangs or if I'm working as a therapist with a client, it's my responsibility to pay attention. Pay attention to those nonverbal signals or verbal signals. Think about Orion with his growling, right?
Yeah.
His nonverbal is he stomps his foot like really hard, just his right back foot, and there's no flies around, right? And it's kind of, listen, I'm getting mad right now,
Pay attention.
right? And what I do is I just say, I hear you, buddy.
Yeah.
It's all right. We hear you. We're not going to hurt you. And
I've
then he
pushed,
stops.
Yeah, I've pushed Blaze before and watched the response from him. It's like, I was working with him one day and trying to get more touch. And he let me have a little and then stepped off. So I stepped back in. He swatted me with his tail. Well, first he turned his head. He's like, pushed me off. Then I went back in. He swatted me with his tail. I went back in. He started to turn his butt. That's the only time he's ever done that. I paid attention.
Yeah, and it's interesting because sometimes we need like 10 warnings and then we're like, okay,
And
now I'll pay attention.
That's where the respect comes in, and you give him the respect and he gives it back, and we've worked it out pretty well. I'm much more comfortable with him since then. But it's been a learning curve. It's been fun. I love being around the horses. They really do. They ground me and bring me. The work gives me a sense of purpose. They give me a sense of life.
Love that.
That was a keeper frame.
Yeah, right. Frame that one. And I thought that principle you brought up with the Masterson method, where you notice just the smallest change, is so powerful because that's what we brush over all the time. Are those small little, whether it's with us or the horses, like the small little things that are like, this doesn't feel right, or like, this is where you need to put some of that focus. This is where we need to address this. So to really go back to that level where it's like, it's just the hint of something brings it out of where it's like, we're not addressing stuff until it's a huge reaction, or our life is falling apart, or our horse is kicking us, or whatever it might be. What a powerful principle for life is, like, pay attention to those subtle signs, those subtle things, because you can, focus on it and address it then, instead of waiting until it's gotten so far down the line, created more problems, become dangerous.
Right. And think about that from the, like, as we're applying it once again to ourselves, right? Like when the check engine light comes on, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not paying attention, how we can relate that. And the other part that Masterson's taught me, particularly as a therapist and as a human being, is one of the things that they teach in the Masterson. If I come in with an agenda, the horse, forget it.
Oh, geez, especially with Mustangs.
Well, especially with Mustangs. It's almost like they can, like, oh boy, she's got an agenda today.
They know.
They know. And it's usually if I'm in a hurry, right? Because I've got other places to be and I need to get them all in their stalls. If I'm not in a hurry, they're almost all in there by the time I get down there.
It's totally true.
It's totally true. So if I come in with an agenda and expect that I'm going to do it exactly my way, I might as well just check it out, right? Let it go, because I'm going to get frustrated, right? And then if I get frustrated, they get frustrated, right? Well, it's the same in therapy. If I come in with an agenda, right? Of course, I teach interns. So interns think they have to have an agenda. I remember being that way. Like if I'm going to teach a group, and I would have a whole plan about what the group is going to look like.
Yeah, we're taught that.
That's how it's, right. And what I've come to learn, and it's really I've realized it as we're talking, and over the years I've kind of realized it. It's working with the Mustangs. Don't have an agenda. Come in and just be open to receive what needs to happen and experience it.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Be open to receiving. We don't have to figure out what that's going to be beforehand. We just have to be ready to learn.
You have a basic idea of what you want to do for the day. But if it doesn't work that way, just
go with it.
Another principle for life also, to not drive yourself crazy.
Flexibility.
Always flexible.
Being able to let go of the control we hold on to so tightly, because that's how we've learned. I think that energy piece is huge too, because with Mustangs, it's very acute that like they can sense your energy. They know like you're frazzled. They might not know you need to be somewhere, but they're like, she's off. So I'm feeling a little off. Mustangs can help us tune into that. I think we still sense that in our crazy, chaotic world, but we kind of just set it aside and ignore it. Deep down, we're sensing the energy isn't good for us. It doesn't feel good, but we just keep trekking on, doing what we think we need to do instead of kind of backing off and resetting, readjusting.
But like one of the guys said that has stayed with us in the past, if you're your true, authentic self, it doesn't matter what you are, whether you're angry, whether you're upset, sad, whatever it happens to be, as long as you're your true, authentic self with the Mustang,
Oh, yeah.
they'll respond to you.
Yeah.
If you're trying to hide it.
Yeah. They know already, I think. They're just like, you're going to have to figure this out before we're going to work together. Oh, that's beautiful.
And I think as far as they're concerned from the herd perspective, they don't want you in the herd. If you're not sure about how you are, it's really confusing for them. It
probably feels like a danger to them also because...
Yes. If you walk in, I mean, I've gone down there and I've just been sad about something, right? And just gone down and said, well, guys, I'm really sad. And I start crying, and of course, Grace comes up.
You named her well. She was named well.
And she just kind of checks me out. And then she's like, oh, okay, she's just sad.
Then she wanders off again.
Goes to eat. Yeah, that's right. But that's the piece, is if you're just honest about it. But if we look at it from that perspective, how we are in society, if we're all over the place, we don't realize it. We're not addressing it. We're not safe to be around.
Yeah. And we try to hide ourselves. We try to present what we think people want instead of maybe how we actually are or how we're feeling.
It's true. So true. Well, we really appreciate you giving so much time.
Absolutely. Lots of great stuff. Definitely let you guys go get going on everything you guys have going on, but thanks for being here. And I'm looking forward to just sharing this with everyone and the work that you guys do.
Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.